If you're over 60 and still spending hours organizing things you probably won't ever use again, you're not alone. But you are making decluttering 10 times harder than it needs to be. Today, I'm going to walk you through 7 common time-wasting habits that are keeping so many of us stuck in clutter. These are things that feel productive, but they're actually slowing us down. The third one on this list? It's one I personally struggled with for years, and it actually made my home more cluttered, not less. And that final tip? It just might change how you think about letting go for good. But let me ask you something first. Have you ever spent an entire weekend decluttering, only to feel like nothing really changed? If so, I want to welcome you back, especially if you're part of our growing community here. Over the past few videos, we've talked about what to declutter, how to handle the emotional side of it, and how to stay motivated when it feels overwhelming. But many of you in the comments asked for something different. You wanted to know, what should we stop doing? What are the tasks that feel helpful, but are really just keeping us stuck? So today I'm answering that request. I'm going to show you the 7 most useless tasks to avoid in every decluttering session. Why they trip up millions of seniors, how to break free from them, and what to do instead to actually move forward faster. And if you've ever felt frustrated by how slow and draining this process can be, just hit the like button. This channel is here for people just like you, and your engagement helps more elderly people find the clarity and relief they deserve. And if you're new here, welcome to Elder Soul Journal, where we talk honestly about life after 60 and help you create a home and mindset that feels calm, clear, and truly your own. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications. Let's start with a habit that feels helpful, but quietly eats up your time and energy. That's organizing things before you've even decided whether you're keeping them. I see it all the time. Neatly folding old t-shirts you haven't worn in years, alphabetizing books you don't plan to read again, or carefully labeling bins full of items that are headed straight for donation. But you just haven't realized it yet. Someone in our community, Ellen, shared her story with me not long ago. She'd spent nearly 2 months trying to declutter her sewing corner. When we spoke, she told me how proud she was of the progress. All her fabric folded by pattern, buttons sorted by size, and threads arranged in rainbow order. But here's the twist. She hadn't touched a sewing project in nearly 6 years. And when I gently asked if she planned to get back to it, she paused and said, "Probably not." What happened to Ellen is something I call the organization trap. She was doing what felt productive, but really she was avoiding the harder task, making decisions. She spent most of her time organizing, but only a sliver of that time actually deciding what still belonged in her life. And that's where so many of us get stuck. Why do we do this? Well, after decades of running households, raising kids, or managing routines, our brains are trained to default to organize mode the second we see a mess. Sorting feels familiar. It gives us a sense of control. But when you're organizing things you haven't committed to keeping, you're just rearranging clutter, not clearing it. It's like ironing clothes you're planning to throw away. Here's a mindset shift to try. Organization should come after the decision, not before. Don't waste your energy making something look neat if it's not meant to stay. Before you touch a single item to fold, stack, or label, ask yourself, do I love this? Do I use this? Does this serve my life today? If the answer isn't a clear yes, it doesn't deserve your organizing energy. Professional organizers call this the decision first rule. And let me tell you, it can cut your decluttering time by more than half. Instead of spending 4 hours making pretty piles, spend 2 hours making real decisions. Then organize what's left in 30 minutes. You'll feel lighter, faster. Have you ever found yourself tidying up things you weren't even sure you wanted to keep? Let me know in the comments. I read every single comment. The second useless task that's sabotaging your progress? Spending hours researching the perfect donation home for every single item. I've seen people spend more time figuring out where to give things away than they spent acquiring them in the first place. One man in our community, let's call him Harold, shared that he had filled his spare bedroom with donation boxes. But instead of moving them out, he kept adding sticky notes. Find local art school for these supplies. Maybe check if the shelter takes small appliances. Look up specialized drop-off for electronics. Harold was stuck. Not because he didn't want to let go, but because he thought every item had to go to just the right person, in just the right place. What started as good intentions had turned into a research project that went on for months. And all the while, the clutter sat untouched, draining his energy and filling up his home. This is what I call donation perfectionism. It looks like generosity on the surface, but more often than not, it's something else. Guilt. Guilt for not using the item. Guilt for letting it go. And trying to ease that guilt by controlling where everything ends up. But here's the truth. Most donation centers are well equipped to handle your items. That gadget you spent an hour Googling, someone on staff can sort and price it in 30 seconds. Those textbooks, they know exactly who needs them. You don't need to solve the whole puzzle. You just need to let go. The extra time we have later in life makes this trap especially tempting. We want to be thoughtful, and that's a good thing. But when thoughtfulness becomes a delay tactic, it's time to draw a line. Here's your new rule. Choose 3 donation outlets and stick with them. 1 general purpose place, like Goodwill or a local thrift store. 1 specialty option, maybe a group that takes household items or building supplies. And 1 small local organization you personally trust. That's it. No rabbit holes, no guilt-driven research marathons. If something is truly rare or valuable, and I mean truly, like over $200, then it might be worth your time to sell or rehome it more carefully. But for everything else, the goal isn't perfect placement. The goal is release. Because the truth is, the longer those items sit in limbo while you're searching for the ideal recipient, the more they drain your energy, your time, and your peace of mind. You're not just storing things, you're storing stress. When you stop researching and start letting go, something shifts. You reclaim your space, your home starts to feel lighter, and that quiet weight that's been sitting on your shoulders, it finally lifts. The 3rd useless task that might be adding more clutter than clarity? Setting up just-in-case storage systems for just-in-case moments that never come. It's a habit that feels smart, careful, responsible. But when you look closely, it's often just a quiet form of clutter, dressed up as preparation. Let me tell you about Gerald, a retired engineer in our community. He'd spent years turning his garage into a backup supply hub. There were rows of neatly labeled tubs, spare cords, extra baking pans, miscellaneous office supplies, even one called "Gifts in Case I Need One." On paper, it looked organized, but he admitted something to me that stuck. He hadn't used 90% of it in over 4 years. The truth is, Gerald wasn't storing items. He was storing worry. Worry that he might need something later. Worry that replacing it would be difficult. And for many of us who live through tough times, rationing, financial hardship, or simply making do, that mindset is deeply ingrained. Saving things just in case gave us security. But now, it's quietly costing us peace. Most of these just-in-case items are never actually needed. And when we do face those rare moments, half the time the thing we saved is outdated, broken, or no longer relevant to the life we live now. Here's the part no one talks about. Every maybe item you keep, every stack of linens for guests who never come, every appliance for meals you don't cook anymore, represents a decision you've postponed. And your brain keeps track of those. All of them. That's where the stress creeps in. Not from the stuff itself, but from the weight of managing it, remembering it, and quietly asking yourself, should I still keep this? Here's the shift. Instead of asking, what if I need this someday? Start asking, how is this helping me live better today? If the answer isn't clear, you've got your decision. There are always exceptions. Essential documents, a few meaningful keepsakes, items you truly use seasonally. But the backup rice cooker you've never touched? The 3rd duvet set for a guest bed you don't even have anymore? That's not safety. That's clutter with a story attached. Start small. Pick one just-in-case category and let yourself release it. You'll be surprised how much lighter your space and your mind will feel once you stop planning for every future emergency and start living fully in the present. The 4th useless task that's keeping you stuck in a frustrating cycle? Revisiting the same cluttered areas again and again without ever making firm decisions. It feels like you're making progress, but you're really just rearranging the same items over and over. I call this decluttering déjà vu, and it's one of the sneakiest ways clutter holds us hostage. Let me give you an example. Philip, a retired contractor in our community, once shared that every few months he'd tackle the shelves in his spare room. He'd pull out the same dusty toolkits, half-used notebooks, stacks of old manuals. He'd move a few things around, toss out one or two scraps, and then carefully put everything back, almost exactly where it was. "I'm getting to it," he'd tell himself. But 3 years later, nothing had really changed. Philip was decluttering, but he wasn't deciding. He was stuck in a loop, hoping that the answer about what to keep or toss would magically become clear the next time around. Why do so many of us do this? It's usually because we believe that the more we look at something, the easier it will be to let it go. But the truth is, the opposite is more likely. There's a psychological principle called the mere exposure effect. The more we see something, the more emotionally familiar it becomes. Even if it's outdated or broken, it starts to feel like it belongs. That old remote, those recipe clippings, the lamp you haven't plugged in for years. Every time you touch them without choosing, you strengthen your attachment to things you no longer need. Here's what professional organizers understand. Indecision is a decision. It's the decision to stay stuck. Every item you keep putting back for now is quietly voting for more clutter and more stress. Here's the shift. From now on, when you're decluttering an area, you give each item one chance. You pick it up and ask the core questions. Do I love this? Do I use this? Does it support the life I'm living today? If you can't say yes, it goes. No maybe pile. No, I'll think about it later. And if you really can't decide, there's a fallback. The decision box. Label a bin with today's date and place undecided items inside. Set a reminder for 6 months. If you haven't needed anything from that box by then, donate the entire thing without reopening it. This takes courage, I know. We're used to revisiting the same choices again and again, hoping it'll get easier. But when you commit to making decisions the first time around, your energy returns. Your space begins to breathe. And the loop finally breaks. What's the space in your home that keeps pulling you back, even though nothing really changes? Let's talk about it in the comments. You might help someone else break free from this decluttering déjà vu. The fifth useless task that's quietly costing you peace of mind? Holding onto items just because they were expensive, even if they no longer fit your life. This is something I call cost trap clutter. The kind of stuff we hold on to simply because we paid a lot for it, even when it's no longer serving us. And it's one of the most emotionally convincing traps in decluttering, especially after 60. It convinces us that keeping something we don't use is better than wasting what we spent on it. But here's the truth. The money is already gone. And the longer you hold on, the more you keep paying in ways that have nothing to do with money. Let me tell you about Denise. Years ago, she bought a custom-made living room set, a large sectional sofa, coordinating armchairs, and a glass coffee table. It cost her thousands. But now, Denise lives alone in a smaller space. The oversized furniture doesn't fit her lifestyle anymore. It's hard to move, takes up half the room, and she never uses the matching chairs. Still, every time the idea of letting it go came up, she'd say the same thing. But I paid so much for it. Denise was paying emotional rent every single day, walking around, cleaning around, squeezing around items that no longer served her, all because of what she'd paid in the past. This is especially tough for seniors, because many of us remember what it took to make those purchases. That furniture set might have cost months of savings, the exercise machine in the guest room, bought with good intentions, the fancy dishes still in the cupboard, purchased for a future that changed along the way. Here's how to break out of the cost trap clutter mindset. Holding on to expensive clutter doesn't honor the money you spent. It just delays the life you could be living now. Every time you see that unused item, feel guilty about it, or work around it, you're continuing to pay for it with your time, your space, and your peace. There's a practical way to break this cycle. Ask yourself, what's the cost per use? If that 2,000-pound treadmill was used 10 times, that's 200 pounds per workout. If it's been untouched for years, that cost is rising, and the space it's taking up is becoming even more expensive. Take note of this helpful shift in mindset. The The most expensive item in your home isn't the one you paid the most for. It's the one costing you stress, frustration, and space every single day without giving anything back. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself and the item is to let it go to someone who will actually use it. That elegant table? It could be the heart of someone else's family gatherings. That barely used blender? A helpful tool in someone's kitchen. You're not losing value by letting go, you're reclaiming it. The freedom that comes when you stop justifying unused, high-priced clutter is powerful. You're not just clearing physical space. You're choosing your current life over past spending decisions, and that's a choice worth making. The sixth useless task that can turn a simple decluttering session into a full-blown project management nightmare? Creating too many sorting categories. At first, it feels like a great idea. You want to be organized. You want everything to go in the right place. But before you know it, your living room looks like a shipping warehouse. Boxes everywhere, each labeled with its own ultra-specific category. What started as decluttering becomes a sorting marathon with no end in sight. Let me tell you about Maureen, a retired accountant who wrote in recently. She was determined to finally clear out her home office, but instead of making quick keep or release decisions, she'd set up no fewer than 17 labeled piles. Bills, paid, bills, unpaid. To scan later, to shred eventually. Stationery, partial sets. Stationery, unused, office supplies, maybe useful, and on it went. She wasn't decluttering, she was inventorying. Maureen was exhausted, and after 6 weeks of sorting, not a single full box had left her home. Here's what's really going on. When we create endless categories, we're actually making more decisions, not fewer. And each little decision adds up, draining your mental energy before you've even tackled the real question. Do I want to keep this or not? It's called decision fatigue, and it's one of the biggest reasons people stall out during decluttering. You don't need to figure out exactly where every item belongs before you decide if it's worth keeping in the first place. That's backwards. Professional organizers have a saying: decluttering is not about perfect organization. It's about reducing excess. If you're letting something go, you don't need a category for it. And if you're keeping it, you'll organize it where it actually belongs later. Later, in the space it's meant to live. So here's the fix. Set up just 5 basic categories: keep, donate, trash, sell. Only if you're truly committed to selling within 30 days, and relocate for things that belong in another room. That's it. No subcategories, no spreadsheets, no extra piles, just a clear, simple path forward. Why do people overcomplicate the process? Because it feels safer than letting go. Sorting feels productive, but it's often just procrastination dressed up as planning. It's a way to delay the emotional decisions that really matter. The transformation happens when you simplify, when your goal is peace, not perfection. When you stop organizing for an imaginary museum and start organizing for the life you actually want to live. Next time you declutter, try this. 1 item, 1 decision, 1 container. No extra steps. You'll be amazed at how much faster and easier the process becomes, and how much lighter your home feels when you stop trying to be the curator of everything you've ever owned. The 7th and most emotionally draining habit that keeps your home full and your heart heavy? Holding on to items out of guilt. Not because you use them, but because you feel bad you don't. This kind of guilt is powerful. It keeps so many people surrounded by things they don't want, don't need, and honestly, no longer even like. But they can't seem to let go, because part of them believes they failed by not using what they bought. Let me tell you about Anita, a woman in our community who shared her story. She had bought a full set of high-end baking tools, silicone molds, decorative piping sets, even a digital scale and stand mixer. Baking was going to be her new hobby in retirement. She'd imagined weekends, making treats for family, experimenting with recipes, maybe even starting a little blog. But life had other plans. After a few tries, her interest faded. The equipment was packed neatly into a cabinet where it sat untouched for nearly 8 years. When we talked about letting it go, she didn't talk about baking. She talked about regret. "It feels like I wasted money," she said, "like I wasted a version of myself I was supposed to become." That's what guilt does. It turns ordinary objects into emotional burdens. It convinces you to keep clutter as punishment for something you didn't follow through on. But here's the truth. The person who bought those items had hope, and hope is never wasted. You made that purchase with a sincere intention. Your interests changed, your life shifted. That doesn't make you irresponsible, it makes you human. And this is especially hard for older adults, because every item feels like a bookmark from a different chapter in your life. The treadmill was your health goal, the painting supplies were your creative dream, the bread maker was your cozy winter plan. So when you let go, it can feel like letting go of a part of yourself. But here's the shift that frees you. Stop asking, why didn't I use this? And start asking, what is this costing me now? Because the money is already spent, but the clutter, that's still charging you, in stress, in guilt, in space that could be used for something that fits your life now. Letting go of those items isn't failure, it's growth. It's choosing peace over punishment. It's making a decision not based on who you were or who you thought you'd be, but who you are today. I've seen this moment change people, not just their homes, but their outlook. When you let go of the guilt and the object that carries it, you get something back. Not money, but peace of mind. So take a moment. Look around. What's the one thing you've been keeping out of guilt? That might be the very thing you need to let go of, to make space. Not just in your home, but in your heart. Now imagine walking into your home after letting go of these 7 useless decluttering tasks. You're not buried in piles of donation research. You're not setting up just-in-case storage bins that only collect dust. You're not revisiting the same drawer or closet over and over, hoping the items will decide for you. You're not keeping things simply because they were expensive. You're not drowning in sorting categories, and you're certainly not spending your afternoons feeling guilty over things you bought 10 years ago. Instead, you're making small, simple, honest decisions, one item at a time. Your home feels lighter because you've stopped micromanaging stuff that no longer belongs in your life. Your mind feels clearer because you've finally closed the loop on all those maybe later decisions. And your time? It's yours again, not spent managing clutter, but living. This is what happens when you stop being a curator of your past and become a creator of your future. You stop maintaining problems, you start solving them. And the energy you once poured into guilt, perfectionism, and hesitation, it flows straight into peace, freedom, and clarity. So here's your next step. Pick just one of the 7 useless decluttering tasks we talked about today. The one that felt a little too familiar. The one that made you pause. Decide to skip it during your next round of decluttering. Then come back and tell me in the comments, which task did you choose to let go of and what changed when you did? And if this video helped you feel more capable, more focused, or just a little less alone in your decluttering journey, give it a like and share it with someone who might need the same shift. Your small action could be the nudge someone else needs to finally clear space for the life they deserve. If you find these kinds of conversations helpful, I'd be glad to have you subscribe.